Earlier today, we got news that Israel has successfully rescued 4 hostages from Hamas captivity. This is very much a developing situation, so we're going to run through what we know so far. For starters, the names of the hostages, and my apologies here on the pronunciation. Noah Argamani, Almog Mer, Andrei Kozlov, and Shlomi Ziv were all pulled out of Gaza and are in the process now of being reunited with their families. Now, Israel says this operation took place during a daylight raid in the Nuseirat area of the Gaza Strip. So to give you an idea where that is, again, using Live UA map here, a publicly available resource, we're going to zoom into Gaza and the southwestern portion of Israel. Nuseirat is in essentially the central portion of the Strip, south of this area where Israel has bisected Gaza. So we're looking right here in the middle of the screen. Nuseirat, just like so much of Gaza, densely packed urban terrain, and there's been a lot of civilians that have relocated there as the Israeli offensive continues to push further south in and around Rafah. And we will get into some updates on the Rafah operation here after we talk through the hostages. So again, kind of mixed information as to how this operation actually played out. Israel has not released a lot of details at this point. It does sound like, just kind of piecing different things together, there were significant airstrikes in the Nuseirat area leading up to this hostage rescue operation. There's also rumors that as many as 200 Hamas militants were surrounding these 2 locations. It sounds like Argamani was being held in one location, and the nearby Merjan, Kozlov, and Ziv were at a second location. As Israeli forces moved in and engaged the Hamas militants, that apparently or appears to have distracted the guards just enough to allow a second Israeli force to move in, secure, and extract those hostages. In fact, we have a video here that I want to show that appears to show at least one of the hostages boarding an Israeli helicopter and being taken out of Gaza. Now, right now, it sounds like all of those that have been rescued are in good condition. They have been taken to Israeli hospitals for further evaluation, and we have videos now showing some of the hostages reuniting with their family members. Now, as I mentioned earlier, amid this operation leading up to even during the operation, there were significant airstrikes in the area, and that is really the information we're getting from Al Jazeera, more on that in a second, Hamas, and other sources inside of Gaza. The Al-Aqsa hospital spokesperson said that 55 people have been killed and tens of wounded have arrived at the Al-Aqsa hospital following the Israeli attack on Nuseirat. I've seen that number spike to over 100 at this point. Again, very early, so hard to tell just what those actual casualty figures will be. Now, there were rumors circulating initially that I feel like are worth addressing, talking about how a senior Hamas leader may have been killed during the course of this operation. And when you think senior Hamas leader at this point in the war, it really has to be Yahya Sinwar, the overall leader of Hamas in Gaza, or Mohammed Deif, the leader of the Qassam brigades, the militant arm of Hamas, so the overall military commander of Hamas. Those 2 senior leaders. We haven't seen any proof of that. In fact, quite the opposite. The IDF at this point, through their spokesperson, has come out kind of squashing those rumors, saying it didn't happen. So Daniel Hagari was asked in a press conference, as a part of the rescue operation, was Mohammed Deif also eliminated? To which he answered, I don't know that Mohammed Deif was eliminated. If he was, I would inform the public. We're chasing him, trying to get the intelligence, and we will find him. It's a matter of time, and we will eliminate him. Another reporter kind of pressed him on, yeah, but if it wasn't Deif, maybe it was someone else. And he just doubled down, saying, we don't have any information at this point. This press conference is about the hostages being secured. We don't have any information to provide you about senior Hamas militants being killed. So something worth keeping an eye on, but at this point, it feels an awful lot like those are just rumors. And for what it's worth, personally, I feel like, going back to the map here, I'd be surprised if any of the senior leadership is in Nuseirat at this point. In all likelihood, you have to think that they're closer down to Rafah, where they actually have an escape route, right, if needed. And we're going to get into this later in the video, but the tunnels leading into Egypt, there's no way all of those have been discovered at this point. Personally, I feel like most of the Hamas leaders are probably down in the southern portion of the Strip. Now, I do want to talk briefly about the coverage that this event is getting around the world. Look, it's a major event. Regardless of which side of this conflict you fall on, the hostages play a central role in how this war has played out and will continue to play out, right? If you think about any sort of ceasefire negotiations, they are all talking about hostages, right? One of the major reasons Israel went in the way they did is because of the hostages. That is a central component to this war. It is something that I think needs to be addressed, especially when some of those hostages, some of Hamas's bargaining chips, if you will, have been rescued. But looking at news sources across the internet, and I went from one to the next, to the next, to the next, back to back. So this was all in one, 5-minute period of time. The front page of the BBC, right there, 4 Israeli hostages free in raid in central Gaza. Then jumping over to the New York Times, Israel's military said it rescued 4 hostages. The Associated Press, there at the bottom of the screen, Israel rescues 4 hostages kidnapped in Hamas-led attack on October 7th. And Reuters, the major story today, Israeli forces rescue 4 live hostages from Gaza. But then shifting over to Al Jazeera at the exact same time that this article is kind of leading the news on major international publications, their headline is "At least 55 killed as Israel attacks central Gaza by air, land, and sea. Health Ministry reports large numbers of killed and wounded rushed to hospital as a result of nonstop Israeli bombing." And clicking into the article, they talk about how Israel had launched an unprecedented, brutal attack on Nuseirat, calling it a barbaric and brutal aggression in the camp which directly targeted civilians. Now, I got it. There's going to be a different angle coming from Al Jazeera. I think that's pretty clear at this point. But it's a little bit frustrating to see that there's not even a focus on the hostage piece. Again, no matter which side of this conflict you fall on and who you think is in the right or in the wrong, the hostages play a central component to this overall war. And it feels like, to me at least, leaving that part out or focusing on something else kind of misses the bigger story, if you will. That's not to downplay any casualties that result at any point of a war, but it does seem like it's a little bit misleading, to say the least, to not at least start with the fact that hostages, this was a hostage rescue operation, and some of those innocent civilians were brought out of captivity back into Israel. Now, continuing on with some military operations, I want to move into Rafah, pulling up a map here to give you an idea where we're looking. Already zoomed in on Rafah because we were talking about where I think most of the senior Hamas leaders are currently located. But to give you an idea, again, the Nuseirat camp up here in the north-central portion of the Strip, or central portion of the Strip, I should say, and then Rafah down here in the south. As you can see on this map, Israel just yesterday completed control, or they say they now have control over the Philadelphia corridor, which is this blue strip on the map separating Gaza from Egypt. We do have some videos showing Israeli forces operating in that area as well. I think the way to say this is that Israel has control on the ground of the Philadelphia corridor and have moved military resources across, because at the same time, while they might have forces on land and in the air overhead, during the course of this operation, they said they've uncovered at least 20 tunnels running from Egypt into Gaza. Some of those, they say, are as long as 2 kilometers in length, and they found at least 84 tunnel entrances in the immediate Rafah area. In the clearance operations into some of these tunnels, they've, of course, not gone into all of them quite yet. They've found weapons, blast doors, explosives, RPGs, and quite a bit, and this is from Israel, quite a bit of intelligence that could source follow-on operations that you have to expect they're going to be exploiting in the very near term. Additionally, Israel released some pictures showing that they found at least 1 tunnel entrance in a child's bedroom and weapons being stored inside of a baby's crib in the Rafah area. Now, we do have an update on the Gaza Pier. It is back up and attached. Not yet operational, doesn't sound like, maybe in the next day or two. But as a bit of a refresher, on May 25th, due to high seas and strong winds, portions of the pier broke apart and some U.S. ships washed ashore. Not on the Gaza shore, but beached in Israeli territory. Over the past week, week and a half here, the pier has been repaired. And yesterday, U.S. Central Command put out a statement saying that they have successfully reestablished the temporary pier in Gaza, enabling the continued delivery of much-needed humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. They said in coming days, CENTCOM will facilitate the movement of vital food and other emergency supplies in support of the U.S. Agency for International Development. Now, CENTCOM put out that they have a goal to facilitate moving 1,000 pounds of food and other humanitarian aid every 2 days across this temporary pier. So we do have videos showing the pier is now back up, it's back attached, and hopefully back in operation here in the next couple days. But that's all I got for now. Of course, if you're interested in this or other national security subjects, be sure to check out our Substack, which is linked in the description below. Released an article yesterday talking about Hezbollah actions in South America. Kind of a hot topic, but some interesting stuff to get into. That is in the description below if you want to check it out. But thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.